everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and I am here to show you a not junky junk journal. When I say not junky, it's not shabby chic, it's more bright colors, and it's a journal, but it's got elements of a junk journal. And the other difference is it's made with hinges like a mini album. So let me show you what is inside. First of all, I'll tell you the measurements. It is 8.5 tall by 4.5 wide, and it's got a 2-inch spine. The cover has lots of elements from the collection. This was one of the chipboard elements, and I did pop up the outer frame, and then this one is inset a little bit. I'll show you how I did that. And then you probably don't see the dimension, but there is some dimension. These mushrooms in this part are raised up, and this is even higher. And you can see it a little better when I show you the photographs at the end. Now, I did use a tie closure. I don't always, but I loved this ribbon. It's a frayed edge burlap ribbon with some yellow polka dots on it, and I just thought it was really pretty, and I liked it. So let me take you inside and show you what it's all about. Well, let me show you the top first. So you can see there's a lot in here. It's got 5 signatures, and the signatures have paper inside, so it is a journal. Now, inside the front cover, we've got a couple of the G45 tags, and I did make it with dies from the tag dies that go with it. I used black and the, I don't know if they call it beige, the off-white ones. I ran out of the off-white, so I used some black ones, and I did use elements from the collection to decorate them. On the back of them, there is room to write on. So again, I'm trying to stick with this is a journal, it's a place to write things down theme. So this will go inside. This goes inside as well. And then this will go in this pocket. So there's a stacked pocket to begin with in the front. These were elements that I used from the collection, and then this again was a chipboard feature. These are wide pockets because these tags are pretty thick. Oh, I want to show you the back of that one. So there's that, and then that one's got some room to write on. I didn't want you to not know there was room to write. So that will go inside there. And then we have this one. So this is the first of the signature. I used one of the cut aparts to sort of accentuate the purpose of this journal. It's all about enjoying the little things. So I cut that, backed it with some yellow decorative paper, and then I fussy cut some of these buttercups and just put them on the side. Inside that, there is a side loading pocket, and there's a couple of tags. I had these tags in my stash, and I just used them by putting paper on the front or on the back. And then this is just a journaling card or photo mat just to add something in. Now here, I've got some stamps. You can barely see them. I didn't want them to overpower. This is a mushroom stamp that's like a daisy. So I just stamped inside this, but you still can write on here. So there's about 6 pages, so there's 12 pages front and back, so that's 24 pages to write on. Here's another side loading pocket on the back of that signature, and I just added sort of a photo mat, but I thought this might be a great spot to write, I don't know, your mission statement or word of the year or whatever you want to write, and then a good spot to put something you cut out of a magazine, who knows. But as you can see, it doesn't have all the collaged looks of most junk journals. So that was the first signature. Here's the second one. I did use a chipboard element. I used a couple of brads here in the holes of that chipboard element that is stuck underneath there. That's just one of the border strips. And then this is just more writing paper. I did add some paper from the collection inside there. There's a doily peeking out. Here's the other part of the doily. So, you know, it's a junk journal element, but it's not shabby chic. It's more bright colors. I don't want to say it's not junky because I don't want people to think that I think junk journals are junk. They're not. This is some of that burlapped ribbon. I cut it down and frayed the edges and just put one of the border strips. I just love that frayed edge look. Here's another one of the tags, and I just decorated the front and adhered it onto the front of this signature. And this signature is made with, and I show you how I do this page. It's watercolor paper that instead of tea dyeing, I wanted to purposely color the paper. So that is how you get this. Now you still can write on here. There's nothing to keep you from writing. I didn't have any red ink, so I included a piece of the red paper just so we had the green, blue, yellow, and red from the collection. There's that page. See, when I made this, I used ferns from outdoors and put them on. Same with this one. It's made with ferns. And here's the back page of that. Here's another one of the signatures, and I just stacked some of the pattern paper on top of some plain cardstock. I die cut a circle and then added one of the chipboard elements. Just so you don't see the hole in it, I put a little butterfly that I fussy cut on the center of that. And then we opened it up and I made a little pocket. I show you how I did that. So you can put some of your elements here. This is where I used lined paper. It had holes in it, so I had to cut it down. But I just wanted to show you that you could use lined paper in here. And instead of using the lined paper and cut down, you could take apart a journal or a book. The problem is with this paper, of course, it had this red line running through it on both sides. But I wanted, again, to show you how to use the lined paper. And there's the last page of that. So this is from the Tim Holtz die. And I just wanted to include colors of the flowers. And again, include some junk journal elements, but not make it dark and dreary. I wanted the bright colors of the collection. So I show you how I do that. This is the next signature. And this is pretty plain. It just has a lot of the plain copy paper. But again, lots of room to write. I mean, there's 5 signatures, so you could have one that's a gratitude journal, one that's a shopping list, one that's things you want to remember. If you wanted positive affirmations, you can. A food tracker or weight tracker or goal tracker, whatever you want to do. Here's the back of that. This is again one of those tags I had, and this time I covered the back of it with some paper from the collection, and this was from that Tim Holtz, the same die that made that. And you can get some of the Tim Holtz dies from Country Craft Creations. When there's a new release, she'll generally bring them in. You just sort of have to be quick because they're limited numbers. So I just thought that was fun. You could glue something onto there. This was, it's July 2023, and there was a 4th of July hop the weekend before, and I made this little folder and these coin envelopes. This coin envelope, and I show you how to do that, and I'll link that video on how I made that. And again, it's not, it's bright colored. I liked using the bright colors, but there's lots of room to put lots of things in the back there. And just if you want to follow that, again, I'll link that tutorial. I used a 9 by 6.5 piece of paper to start and folded it down according to that video. On here, I added one of the chipboard elements. I sort of tied it onto the back with string. I had some die flowers or leaves in my stash. I had some vellum that I used. And this is obviously from the collection. There are lots of little individual, let me start from the back, places to put tags and whatnot in these little pockets. So that one can go there. That'll go like that. Here's one of those. This was an old Project Life card, so it's 3 by 4. The sides were already rounded, so you can just get a 3 by 4 piece of cardstock and put it on there. I had them in my stash, and I'm just trying to use up stuff in my stash. So that can go in there. Here's just another tag I made. And that can go in this pocket. And then this just came from the paper. I just like the paper. So that'll go in there. So lots of things you can put in this kind of ephemera pocket. I don't know what you would call it, but just sort of pretty. So that is my junk journal, and I am going to do the tutorial and show you how to make it, and that will start right now. I just want to tie that. So gather your supplies and let's make this junk journal. All right, let's get started. Let's make the cover. So I am using not the lay flat method. I call it the old method, but it's just the standard. I'm using the lines on my mat to line everything up. I put a 1/4 inch piece of score tape on the side of one of these 7 by 10.5 pieces of cardstock. I'm going to line this up and take my bone folder and burnish that down. And so now I have a piece that is 14 inches wide. So I am going to use my scoreboard to line things up. I'm going to take my 1 inch spacer, and I have my, how wide is 2 inch wide piece of chipboard, and I'm going to put it in the center and that looks good. Now I'm going to grab my score tape again, and I'm going to put a piece of the 1/4 inch score tape on one side of my chipboard and then the other side of my chipboard. Take my bone folder and do a good job of burnishing, because I'll be able to get to it again. And you know, this bone folder is great for peeling off the score tape backing. You know, you can use your spacer as a tool to help space things. Well, let me put it down a little bit, and then I still can use my other spacer. On the top there. So this will be the spacer to determine, let me peel off the rest of this backing paper, where to put this piece of chipboard. So I've got the 1/4 inch score tape, but I don't need a whole 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to use that spacer to help lay this down. It's going to go up towards the top and down. And so there is, I don't know what the width of this spacer is, 1/8 of an inch, a little bit more, I'd say 3/16. I'm going to put this next to this piece, peel off the backing on this one. I always use the score tape sheets to put some backing on. It just seems to give me a nice cover. Alright, so I'll put that down, peel that up. So my channel is a nice, consistent width, and I'm happy with how that looks. So now you could fold here and fold there and cut off the corners. Actually, let's do that. Let's do that. So I'm going to fold this down and burnish, and fold this down and burnish, fold this side and burnish, and do the same here. Now this double-sided tape, the score tape that's in the center, it's going to want to stick, and that's okay. We can just pull it up. Alright, I'm going to cut the rectangles that are now exposed. We can now see them. They are created by the lines that we burnished on. So even though you don't use the lay flat cover method, you still can use this method to make your covers. Alright, I'm going to use some glue. I'll go down right next to the chipboard. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't do this. I'm going to do this side real quick because I've already put my glue down. I'm going to burnish so the cardstock is right next to the chipboard. And I'm going to fold it down and burnish some more till that adheres. Okay, now I'm going to go through and take my time and do the rest of this. So I'm going to take my scissors, put it right next to there, right next to the chipboard, and cut off whatever cardstock is going to be overhang. And now that that's done, I guess I was just getting ahead of myself. Another bead of glue next to the chipboard. Go up so it'll be completely covered, and it'll stick to the chipboard, and it'll lie down flat. And by doing that cut with the scissors on the side, you're not going to have any overhang, and it'll be a nice flat cover. And a pretty cover at that. Now don't worry about putting tape on, because once we put other paper on this back cover, and I know we will, it's going to adhere. It's going to stay down. Alright, I'm just going to run this along the top. Whoops. Okay, and then I'm going to take my bone folder and push down where we have the channels created by our spacers. All right, and there is our cover. And then we'll go ahead and make our hinge system and get our pages in. All right, since the height of the pages will be 8 inches, I'm cutting this 1/16 of an inch smaller. So this is 7 15/16 by 12. It's just a smidgen smaller than 8. You can make it even smaller if you want to, but I would not make it right at 8. The page might not fit. All right, I'm going to start scoring. I'm going to have 5 pages, so I will have 5 sets of 1/2 inch hinges and a 3/8 inch in between. So I'm going to start at 2, go 2 1/2, 3, 3 3/8, 3 7/8, 4 3/8, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 1/8, 7 5/8, 6 5/8, 7 1/8, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2. I hope I said that all right. All right, I am going to take my bone folder. So I want to get it so you can see my tabs. All right, so I have 2 sets of 1/2 inch for the first hinge, then a 3/8, then 2 sets of 1/2 inch. Between every set of 1/2 inch in the center, I am going to fold. I'm going to actually turn the paper over so the bumps are facing up and fold in that first half. And as I fold, I'm going to make sure the edges are lined up. Then I'll go up to the next set of 1/2 inch hinges. If you fold on the wrong ones, it's no big deal. But we're just going to do in between the 1/2 inch pieces. So you'll fold it 5 times for right now. And this one. And again, you're making sure it's lined up at the side, just to make sure you have a good straight hinge. All right, so you can see a little bit with the shadow. Trying to make it so you can see. You can see a little bit. There are some parts where the hinge will face up and then others where they're down. So they're faced up, we want them to come to a point. So I'm going to put my fingers here. I'll pull this towards me, and now this is going to be accentuated, and that mountain is going to get taller. I'm going to pinch it together and just with my fingers, just burnish. Just with my fingers. I'll do the same for the next one. And then holding that, I'm going to pull towards me so I have a nice mountain with the next set of hinges. Do it with the other ones. After you've done this several times, it really becomes easy. And I'll pull all these towards me, make sure they're folded where they need to be. And I will take the edge of my bone folder and burnish. And I'll push them all away from me. And burnish. So they're already trained and we don't have any glue on. But let's put some glue on. Okay, I'm going to do 2 and show you, and then I'm going to do the other 3. Do one at a time unless you're in an area where there's high humidity and low heat and it's not going to dry fast. So I'm just going to zigzag on one side of the hinge. On the inside, you noticed I turned it upside down, so now that mountain's facing down. And I will put a bead of glue about 1/8 of an inch away from the top. Now we have the gusset facing up. And then I'll turn this upside down and pinch it. Let the glue distribute. Go all the way down to the top. Now if you have fingernails, if you don't have nail polish on them, you can use them to squeeze. See how that looks now? So that is, this hinges all together. So I'll do one more and then I'll do the other 3. So I'm just gonna zigzag across. I'm not going all the way to the edge. I'm staying about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. Bead of glue on the very top. Turn this upside down, pinch it. Distribute the glue. I'm just going back and forth and then I'll go to the edge. I don't want to go to the very edge to begin with. So if you've got it, go ahead and do the other ones. I'm going to add glue to 3 of them at once because I'm pretty confident in myself here. Hopefully not overly confident, but if you're not sure, just do one at a time. Since I'm doing this tutorial, I don't want to take your whole day putting glue down. I've got some glue on my fingers. Okay. Pinch and distribute. Pinch and distribute. Pinch and distribute. Come to the edge. If any seeps out, clean it up. Okay, once you've got all of your hinges glued together, we're going to push them away from us and we're going to burnish with the edge of the bone folder. That will help distribute the glue. Pull them towards you and burnish. So you can do that a couple of times till you know they're glued nice and tight. If any glue seeps out, clean it up or else it's going to get on your hinges. It may be in a place that you don't see, but it may be in a place you see. Okay, so there's our 5 hinges, and then here's the underside. You can see the channel just very slightly. You just see where they are. So now I'm taking my book. I'm going to place it on here just to eyeball it and see where I am. So I've got a little more than 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/8 from the bottom of the hinge to the bottom of the book, the top of the hinge to the top of the book, and on both sides. Now, if you're not confident in your abilities to put it back straight, you can just take a pencil and draw a line here so you'll know to place it right there again. I'm pretty sure that I can eyeball it pretty well. All right, I'm going to take my glue and starting about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, I'm going to run it on the channels as straight as I can. As you can see, I don't always get a good line on the channels, but that's okay. All right, and once we've done that, I'm going to zigzag across. I'm being a little messy because I'm going fast. All right, and I'm just going to add a little zigzag next to it. All right, I don't want glue on these wings because that's how I hold it. So again, I'm going to figure out where I want it. Since it's glue and not a double-sided tape, you've got some time to move it around. Make sure it's parallel to the bottom. All right, and then I'm just going to lay it down first. I'm taking my fingers, just the ball of my index finger, and I'm going to run the glue from the top to the middle, from the bottom to the middle. I'm just taking one of these center channels. Then I'll do the one next to it, but still in the center, from the top to the bottom, or top to the middle, bottom to the middle. And then as I do it, I'm going to move this hinge over to the center. I'm going to do one on the outside. And then I'm going to go move this one towards the center and do it here. So I'll go back and forth and do first one side, then the other. Now, if you don't like the feel of the paper, you can use your bone folder. I've just gotten used to doing it with my finger. And there's a piece of something there. I'll erase in a second. And I just like knowing where it's going to go. All right, I put a little bit of glue there, but not very much. I need to put some glue in the channel just on the paper. I don't need it in the center of the channel because we've got the double-sided adhesive. And then I'm going to put it on the chipboard. And then on the chipboard on the other side. And then I'll zigzag it a little bit here, but I'm still leaving room to hold it. We'll fill that in a second. So first I'm going to go real close next to the hinge. Go from the bottom to the top. I see a little bit of glue seeping out, so I'll clean it. Then I'll take the blunt end of my bone folder, and in the channel I'm going to push. And I'm going to go a couple of times. It's not going to hold the first time. I see glue seeping out, so I'm cleaning it up. And I'm going to hold the cover of my book and pull it up a little bit, because what I want is this paper on top to meet with the double-sided adhesive on the bottom. Okay. I'm pushing that down. I'm going to burnish the glue that's down here. I'll go in that channel one more time. All right, that's good for there. Now I'm going to do this side. So I'm going to pull it up. So I didn't put any glue here because I wanted to show you. So I'm going to put a little glue in this channel on top of the cardstock, but not on top of that double-sided adhesive that's in this channel. I'll put some glue on this chipboard. I want to make sure it stays, and also it will moisten the paper and help it move a little bit. So I'll go on this side. I can't draw a straight line, you can see. And then I'll zigzag a little bit to hold it. So now I'll put this down. I'll first go right next to that hinge. Be careful that you don't poke a hole in the hinge. Go gentle. And then go in the channel. Start at the top, go to the middle, start at the bottom, go to the middle. I'm just slowly moving the paper a little bit more, and then when I feel like it's as far as I can go, I'm going to fold up this book. I'll hold it on the side and allow this paper on top to reach that channel and adhere to that double-sided tape we put down next to the spine early on. And then I'll go ahead and burnish here so it adheres to that glue. I may or may not go back later and adhere this. It doesn't matter. It's going to get covered. All right, I'm going to just, a little bubble there. I'm going to just let it dry. I'm not going to fold it up anymore. I'm going to let it dry while I work on the base pages. For the base pages, I have chosen 5 pieces of my pattern paper. I chose 2 solids and 2 patterns. Of course, on the back, you've got a mixture of patterns and solids. But that's what I have. They are 8.5 inches by 12. So the design is going to be in this orientation. All right. What we're going to do, we'll score at 4, end at 8, and then let's say this is the top. In this case, does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. Let's say this is the top of your design. So that goes facing the right, and score at 1/2 inch on the left hand side with the 8.5 inch side at the top. Now, let's say this is the design I want facing up. I want to see this design because I do, it's pretty. So I'm going to use my scissors here. We're going to keep this tab, that's the one we want. The design up, I'm going to miter up to that score line. I might as well miter that side too. And then I'm going to cut on the score line through 4 inches up to the 8-inch score line. I'm going to turn it over. Going to fold up this tab, add glue to it. This is going to be the inside, so I will fold this over and burnish. Turn it over and burnish and fold it. I want this flap to be on the right hand side. All right, so let's talk about the different kind of paper to put in this not junk journal. There's nothing wrong with junk journals, don't get me wrong. If you want to go collect scraps of decorative paper, envelopes, I don't know, whatever else you put in a junk journal, go ahead and do that. I am taking some plain copy paper that is cut 8 by 8. I've got about 3 sheets here. Probably total, I don't know, maybe 10 on a side. So I'm scoring at 4 inches so it'll fold nice and neat. As neat as it can. It's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. So I've scored 4. So plain white copy paper or colored copy paper if you want, whatever you want to do. So I'll put that aside and we'll work on that later. So here I've been playing with some watercolor paper, really inexpensive watercolor paper, and making some prints. So this one I'm going to show you real quick how I did. I basically die cut some daisies, placed them down, spritzed on top, spritzed with water. I took the stencil part where I cut the daisies out, inked it with a darker color, then went back and spritzed some more, add some water, dried it, and this is how we get this daisy print. I wanted something that looked intentional instead of just tea dyed. Nothing wrong with tea dyed, you can go ahead and do it. I just felt with the bright colors of this paper I'm using, I didn't want tea dye. And speaking of colors, so these are 2 different blues. I don't have the blue to match exactly the collection. Here's the blue. And there was some purple in this one blue. I forget what it was. It was a distress ink. I wet it real well. I tapped I had some fern, live fern, I picked from the garden. Well, not picked, but pulled from the woods. Inked it up and then laid it down and let it dry overnight, and that's what I got. I mean, I sort of like it. I don't like the color, but I'm still probably going to use it. Now, the back side is just plain. I mean, that's okay. I'll use that. And this I did the same with the ferns. I used a couple of different colors of green. Got a little too wet there. I could go back if I wanted to, but I'm not that worried about it. So it takes some trial and error, and I just was in a mood to play, and so I'm going to use that. Now, you could use tea-dyed, whoops, that's not it. Tea-dyed paper. You know, honestly, it's not my favorite. See this, I tried to dye it and I put the ferns down. I mean, you can see the ferns. There was one big fern here. You can just about make it out. But this is too dingy. I'm not going to use that. What else do I have? Yeah. This will be great for something else, but not for what I'm doing. I'll use these because they're bright and that'll be okay. Let me show you what we could do with notebook paper. Notebook paper is sort of difficult because it is, all right, so it's got the holes in it for one thing. I'm going to just do one and show you what I mean. And I'll do a couple because they're thin. So we need it to be 8 inches. I'm going to cut about 1/2 inch off the top just because I wanted more writing paper. And then I'm going to cut it down to 8 inches. That's about right. These little scraps or fire starter, this bigger one I can make a little book out of with my scraps, and I'll do that, so I'll save that. And then this part with the holes, I'm just going to cut it just so it's right at the edge. So I just cut off the holes, and there is our 8 by 8 lined paper. It's not 8 by 8. Once you've cut off the holes, it's 7 3/8. So this is smaller than the 8 by 8 that I would like to use. But if you want lined paper, either you could tear apart another notebook or use some school supply lined paper. So that's up to you what you want to do. All right, what we're going to do for this example, I'm going to use the copy paper that I scored. So that's a couple sheets there, a couple there. Well, let's see how many I have. I have 2 sets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 or 6. So 5 or 6 sheets of plain white paper. And this is 8 by 8. So what I'm going to do is grab my stapler and a piece of thick fun foam, or a couple of layers, and I'll show you what we're going to do. All right, before I put my staples in my stapler, did you know you could take an alcohol marker and color them? All you need to really do is color the top and then put them in. You could do a whole rainbow, and then whenever you are stapling, you'll get surprise color. Okay. This is 3 layers of thin fun foam, 1 layer of the thick fun foam. I just glued it all together because I wanted it to be thick. You could have a couple of layers of that thick fun foam. I'm gonna make sure this paper folds. And I guess I could have cut it a little smaller than the 8 by 8. I'll do that for future ones. I don't know, maybe cut it and then, well, let's do it. I'm going to get my paper trimmer. This is all folded nice and neat. I am at 3 7/8. This is an old Fiskars paper trimmer. You can't get it anymore, and I know that because I had a part broken, and Fiskars doesn't sell it anymore. They sent me money to replace it. I didn't want to replace it. I just found a new one on eBay. Okay, now it's a little bit smaller, which is fine. Gonna make sure it's nice and straight. Gonna open up my stapler. Whoops. It's not nice and straight anymore. Let's do it this way. I have some of these clips. Okay. This one's not as strong. I'm going to go, I'm going to turn it upside down. And I'm putting this because I don't want to staple this flap. So I'm putting it right up against it on the line, and I'm going down. So I'm right there. And it's into the fun foam. I'm going to do another one over here, just two. So you see they're sticking up. I'm not going to take my nice non-stick bone folder because it'll make lines in it. Taking a screwdriver, I'm pushing this one and this one. Turn it over, and then just pushing that down. All right, it's gonna go in the book like this. So I have all of these pages that I can use for writing and journaling. Now again, if you want it more of a junk journal, you can replace these with whatever you want. I'm going to add other things to it, but for right now, that is how I'm going to make this journal. So let's do another one. And I could suppose right now you could staple in the center just to keep it all together, but I'm okay if it doesn't. I'm going to cut it down, fold it in half to 3 7/8. Now, if you can't do this with your paper trimmer, you're just going to have to cut each one individually. Okay, this is where it goes in. This is where we want to put this. So that can go there. Okay, so now if you want to get junky, you could add other paper. So let's say this is a piece you want to add to the center. We're not even going to put it in the paper trimmer. We're just going to do that. I'm going to fold it in half. And this could go, you could put it at the edge, or you could put it in the center of all these pages. I'm going to get my little clips. Get my little surface, turn it upside down. So here's the top flap. I'm going to staple right on that line. Staple here right on that line. Grab my screwdriver. Flathead, of course. Some people can push it down with their fingers. I am not that talented. All right, and there we go. All right, I'm going to do some pages with our lined paper. This one piece is bigger than the others. I'm going to just trim it down. It was my experiment piece. So, say you want to use this as a, I don't know, shopping list. Maybe you want to keep it in your purse, and that's what you want to get everyone for Christmas. You want a list of that. That's fine. I don't have as much paper, so these clips aren't staying. But that's right. We'll hurry up and... Oops. I'm going about 1.5 inches from the bottom and 1.5 inches from the top. Trying to get it right on the line. Once you know your stapler, you'll know how far you can go. You can't even tell I colored the staple. Yes, you can. That's why I turn it this way. It's easier for me. Okay. All right, let's do this one with our watercolor paper. So I've got blue, yellow, and green. I want to have a little bit of red. So I'm going to add, oh, there we go. Because I didn't have a red that really matched all this. I'm going to fold one at 4 inches. And one will be a little bit smaller. And these I'll fold right in half. So this one will have the backs of the paper you could still write on. I mean, you could write on it all. So there is that one. And I'll probably do the other one with just more copy paper. All right, now I'm going to put my signatures in the book. Let's do a dry fit. So I've got the part with all the paper to the right and the pocket to the left. And it's going to slip in like that. I'm not going to put it all the way down, but it's just going to be like a page in a mini album. All right, so I'm going to add glue to the hinge. I'm starting in the back. Put your pages in order, your signatures, whatever you want to call them, in order. And that'll go on. Got my bone folder. And there's one. So we've got the page, and then you've got all of your writing areas, and that's on good. All right, I'll add glue. And we'll go with the next one. Here is my little pocket. Put it in. Don't want to go all the way to the bottom of the hinge. I want to have some room so the page will turn. There we go. Now we'll do this one. Goes like this. This is the one with all of my watercolor paper, so it's a little thicker than the other. So I wanted that in the center. If you have more room at the sides, you can put it there. A lot of glue here. Didn't mean to get that much, but I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to come apart. So here's the other side of that. There we go. Now I have this one. Okay, here's the little pocket that goes in. There we go with that. Come over here and burnish this down too. It looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch away from the bottom of the hinge. It gives you a lot of room for movement. And then here is the last one. Does it surprise you that that's my favorite paper? That'll be the first page. There we go. All right. Now these are pretty chunky, more chunky than your normal mini album. Now I know a lot of people when they're making junk journals, they actually sew this in. It's not my favorite way of putting things together, so that's why I figured out a way to use a mini album to make a junk journal. All right, now we're going to start doing a little bit of decorating. And I'll show you. Here I'm playing with embossing powder. I wanted to add some elements, but it was nothing special, so I'm not going to bore you with these details. I embossed over the mushrooms. I made them shiny and bright, and it looks pretty, but I ended up not even using them. And then I die cut this butterfly, and I tried to spruce it up, make it look fabulous to go with the paper, but it really didn't match. I ended up using it on the back of one of the signatures, but it didn't give me the bang for the buck. Okay, so for this signature, I am taking one of the chipboard shapes. I'm sanding it to get those little bumps off of it. I glue it onto a piece of paper, and then I put brads in through it and just adhere the brad and then glue that whole thing onto a larger piece of paper that I used a corner punch on. I'll add that onto the front of the signature, and on the bottom you already see there is that strip from the border strip, and I just put it down to add a little more interest. So that is how I decorated that signature. This is the front of the first page, and really it's pretty self-explanatory, but I figured I'd walk through the process of decorating it anyhow. So I take a piece of the pattern paper, the yellow from the Patterns and Solids, and just cut it a little bit larger than that cut apart. And I fussy cut some of the buttercups and just glue them down. That is it for the front of the first signature. And for the inside of the cover for this signature, I had this border strip, and all I did was cut it the length of the paper, so it's 8.5, but I that green part on the border strip, I didn't like that saying, I didn't want to use it, so I just scored it. I'm trying to get it straight on my scoreboard, so I score it exactly where I want it to score. Anyhow, I just scored it down that between the green strip and the blue strip and folded that in. So I sort of make a pocket. I'm just folding it down, putting it in, and it just makes it easy to put on the page, and I'm able to put some elements as if it is a full-blown pocket. I add some tape, and there we go. Okay, this tag is also pretty self-explanatory, but it was fun, so I figured I'd go over it with you. So there's a teeny little border strip that I just put on the bottom of the tag, but just because it's cute, it's got ladybugs and I liked it. And then here's one of my fussy cut mushrooms. So I just put that over to the right hand side. I love all these buttercups. My husband never knew what a buttercup is, that you put it under the chin, and if it shines on the chin, it shows that you like butter. Anyone else ever remember that from being a kid? Anyhow, I put those on just around the base of the mushroom to add some interest and fun, because I like buttercups, and they're growing all over in Vermont where I am right now. And then for the ribbon, I got out some white seam binding, and then I just took my Distress inks. I used a couple of different colors because I wanted it to have that deep deep yellow. So I inked it up, spritzed it with some water. I used fossilized amber and mustard seed, and then there we go. Voila, and it's dried and it's done. Okay, another place where I'm showing you exactly how I do something. So there's the tag. I had the plain tag. I used the die, cut the paper, and then I added some smaller pieces from my scraps, basically, to put onto the tag. And then I took a piece of solid green paper, which I put down after I rounded the corners, and that sort of gives me a base to put on fussy cut elements. So we added them. These I fussy cut from some of the paper, added some flowers, had some dimensionals, played around with the placement, and then there we go. So I'm measuring this just to make sure it is 3 by 4. I'm gently smushing it with some antique linen distress ink just to make it so it's not stark white. Then I'm taking a fine tip marker and going around it a couple of times. I'm just showing you how to do it. Not that you don't know, but it's a reminder that that's something else you can do to add a different element to your mini albums. All right, I'm going to work on the cover. So I've already cut paper and I've already glued this ribbon onto here. I tacked it down with some binder clips, oops, and had it on overnight, so it's real strong, not going anywhere. So I'm going to just tuck that inside the book. And I'm first going to put on this green paper, which is cut just about a 3/16 of an inch smaller than the cover. So if the cover is 4.5 by 8.5, means I'll just have just a 1/16 of an inch around it. Actually 3/16 all around it, so just a little more than a 1/16 of an inch. I guess I need to put a little more glue down here because it's going to soak in by that ribbon. All right, and then this one, I'll give you the exact measurements. So that is 4 5/8 by 8 3/8. Oh, 4 5/16 by 8 3/8, sorry. And then I'll put this one down, and this one I inked, actually I inked them all, but I wanted to add a little dimension on the cover. Even if it's not real dimension, it'll look like it. So I inked the edges of these. So I will just center this. And this measures 3 3/4 by 7.5. And then I've cut this out. So I had 2 of these papers, so I utilize them. This is 3 1/4 by 7 1/4. There's a much smaller margin between this and the blue than there is between the blue and the green. And when I cut this out, I cut straight, but then around these mushrooms, I cut a little wider because they're going to be a focal point of my cover. Alright, now, so this is what I did with the second piece, the same paper. So I fussy cut around this. I did not cut this big mushroom. Nothing wrong with the little elf sitting inside the mushroom, but he wasn't going to be the focal point of my book. The nature aspect is more my focal point. And then I cut some chipboard. What I did is I put the chipboard down, traced around it, and then cut inside. I tried to stay at least 1/8 of an inch inside. As you can see, some areas it worked a little more, some a little less, but that will make it a little strong. And rather than using a whole bunch of double-sided dimensional adhesive, I don't always like using that. I don't mind using it for cards, but for mini albums, a little while ago, and actually it happened again last week, I took out a mini album I made. The one last week was from 2018, and I had made a dimensional cover shaker on it. And the tape that I used was all of the shaker elements stuck to it, and it just wasn't pretty. It's like it lost all of its adhesiveness, and it just, everything was sticking to it except it wasn't sticking to the paper. So I had to take it apart and use chipboard. So if I can, when I'm making mini albums, I'd rather use chipboard to pop up shaker elements. All right, well, that dries, and can you see the dimension to it? A little bit, but we'll let that dry for a little bit. So I took the packaging of the chipboard. I took out all of the chipboard pieces, and I cut a piece on the top and a piece on the bottom. And it's about 1/4 inch wide, and I'm going to adhere it to this frame that came from the chipboard pieces. So I'm going to put that one right there, right up against it. I'll push it down on the table. That's for the top. And now I'll do the bottom piece. I find I have to use a little more adhesive, a little more wet glue with the chipboard, just because it soaks in. Alright, and then I'll push it down on the table so it's lined up with the top of my chipboard. And then I have 2 side pieces. I did not cut, I guess I could have turned that upside down. I did not cut all the pieces because it's not a shaker. It's just going to be popped up. So if it was a shaker, I would have certainly cut to make it go all the way around it so the little shaker elements wouldn't come out. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is this is going to go there, and this is going to go here, and it's just going to be raised just a little bit to give it some dimension. I want to make sure I've got that in the right place, and to make absolutely sure I put a line there, but I think I'm going to go down a little bit lower, and I will glue this first. Now you could add 2 layers to this if you wanted it really dimensional. But just 1 layer is enough for the accent I was looking for. Alright, have to make sure it's the right way. And this is going to sit right above it. So I know on camera you don't see how dimensional it is. Alright, we'll let that sit for a little bit. So now I have this little mushroom that I cut, and this is a packaging that I just folded in half and glued together. So it's just 2 layers of some thick cardstock. So it's not really dimensional, but I didn't want it to be too dimensional. I'm going to put that here. So that's going to add just a little more oomph. And then I've got these couple of flowers. You know what I think I'm going to do? So I don't mind the clovers. I'm just toning them down with some ink because they're going to be hidden underneath. I don't mind the clovers, but I'd rather the buttercups. So since it's my album, I can focus on the features I like. If you like the clovers, you might want to add more. Alrighty, so let's again see. So maybe I put that one there. That one there, and then this one here. That would work. Then the stems from the clovers will look like they're the stems for the buttercups. So that one. And I don't want to hide that door. So even though I wanted to stick more with natural things and less with the fairy things, I sort of think it's cool. It's one of those sort of look and find things. The more you look at the cover, the more you'll see all these different ideas and images. All right, that goes like that. So there we go with the cover. So again, it is dimensional. And I like it. All right, that is the cover. We'll move on. All right, for the inside front cover, I cut 2 pieces of cardstock, 3 3/4 by 6. With the 6-inch side at the top, we'll score at 1/2 and 3/4. And then we'll score at 5 1/4 and 5 1/2. We'll rotate and score at 1/2 and 3/4. And we'll do the same for the other one. 1/2, 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 1/2. And rotate, score at 1/2 and 3/4. All right, now I'm going to miter, and I'm going to go up to the score line that's closest to the center of what will be a gusseted pocket. Well, not gusseted. It will have some dimension to it. I want to be able to fit some things in here. Oh, actually this one I didn't need to cut the bottom on as well. Alrighty. So I have this piece of paper. I'm going to just lay it aside. This one I'm going to fold and burnish on our score lines. And we'll do that with this one as well. I don't have to fold on the bottom for this. So again, it's going to be 2 pockets. So I'm going to, first of all, add adhesive to this bottom tab. And center it and burnish. Now I don't need to put tape on here because I have this piece of paper that's going to go all the way down. I will add glue to these 2 tab lines. And making sure this stays pretty straight. I'll move this closer so you can see. And I'll grab my bone folder, go in the pocket, and burnish. Alrighty. And this one, again, we'll leave that plain, but that will go, I guess it's good that I mitered, that will go right into here, and we will add glue to here. I'm going to turn this around. That goes in. And then I'm just going to take a look and make sure it's all straight. Oops, see, this slipped out. Okay, and then here's the paper that will fit in there. Just making sure it'll fit. I'll go ahead and add glue. See, I already have it in. I took it out because I wanted to add the pockets. No harm, no foul. Sometimes I make mistakes when I'm designing, and sometimes I just change my mind. Alright, that goes in. Alright, I'm just going to let that dry. I'll cut pieces for the front. I had 2 of these books just holding that up. So let me cut pieces for the front, and then we'll decorate the pocket. Okay, I'm going to put this in the top pocket. I like having these colors here, the bold red, the yellow with a pattern, because I felt it needed a little pattern. And then the blue will go down here, but I'm going to add these strips, and I'm going to line it up at the top on one side, let it hang over the bottom on the other. I'll show you why. Same with this one. Just put it about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. And then I'll just grab my scissors and cut this off. I'll glue this down. I liked this little strip because it had some of the buttercups that are on the page, the front of page 1. So that'll go like that. And then this is a chipboard element. You see there's a little nub on the bottom there. And then there was a hole on top, and I just filled the hole with a random enamel dot I had. It's red, that matches, so I'll put that in the center. Didn't want anything with too much verbiage here because we've got this, and I wanted this to be the focal point of the spread. Now we've got 2 of our tags. This one I don't know if you saw, but I was playing with Distress ink and Distress embossing glaze. I had yellow and a turquoise, so I just put it a little bit with a paintbrush. I put on the Versamark and just painted it on, sprinkled the enamel one color at a time. I used a little paintbrush just to scrape off any excess, and then I heat embossed it. So that one can go there, that one will go there, and there's our front page spread. So I like it. All right, let's move on. Okay, this is inside of this a signature, and I wanted to have a little pocket. So I have this piece that measures, oh, here's my ruler, 4 3/8 by 3 1/2. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard. Whoops. Okay, and I am going to score 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. So I'm going to score on the left side 1/2 inch and on the bottom 1/2 inch. I will just cut across these lines, miter that, miter that. Burnish on my score lines. All right, this we'll put aside for later. And that will simply go there. So it's an open pocket. I don't have it closed on that side, and that's okay. And so what I've done with this signature, this is the one with the paper, is I put mushrooms. This is my mushroom section. I just thought they were so cute. So I put some on some pages. Some pages don't have any. And then I have these couple of ones left over, and I'm just going to simply put them on the front here. And then we can just take a journal card. I guess I could cut this down if I wanted to, or we'll just put that in for now. Alrighty. Now, this page. Alright, let's work on this page. So this page is going to have this down the side, and then I've die cut this. This was a die I got from Scrapbooker's Country Craft Creations just a little bit ago. Well, maybe last year actually. I'm going to cut that down and that down. And I'm going to cut, there's 5 sections. I'm going to cut in between those. And what I'm actually going to do is glue this right one side, whoops, into the bottom. And that's going to go right about there. This is going to go, whoops, red, here. I want this all the way to the edge. And then this will go there. So I want this on top. No, it'll go below. All right, let's glue this first. I want to trim a little bit. And then I'll glue this. And then this will get glued. Right there in the center. What's up, Buttercup? Think it's cute. Okay, and then on the opposite page, so I have these pieces. These were cut out of a Tim Holtz die. Was it called specimen die? I don't know. But you can put little specimens, and I am going to put something in there, but in the meantime I'm going to glue these on. Again, I just like the bright colors. They're sticking on there because I used some ATG just to hold it until I was ready to permanently adhere it. There are new glue guns on Country Craft Creations. I think one is not permanent, and that would be perfect for this use. Alright, I'm going to just put those on here, and then I'm going to come back and show you what we're going to do with those. So here you see the slides in more detail. There is acetate on the cover. I put the numbers and used some real small brads on each one. These flowers were from die from my stash. It was very fiddly. I don't know if I'll ever use it again. And I used embossing powder to make them shiny. Another process I'm not sure I'll do again, but I like how the page with the slides came out. So here's a closer look at some of the details of the pages. You can get a better look at some of the additions to it, the chipboard, the brads, the ribbon, and just some of the bits and pieces. You'll notice that it does have a lot of elements of a junk journal. Obviously, it's not as full as I've seen some junk journals, but it still can be used as a journal, and that was my main idea. As we close, I'm going to show you the process of how I made that daisy paper, if you are interested. And while you're watching, I want to say thank you for dropping by. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.